Good evening, Freedmen family, reparationists, allies, and guests. Thankful Thursday is here, and Team Rare is back in the saddle after taking a holiday break to bring you episode 9 of the Religion and Reparations Power Hour. The Rare Power Hour, the most powerful hour on the web. Live from Capitol Hill, DC, I'm co host and co producer Kelly Matthews, and tonight, we have decided to forego having a guest and keep it real with an intimate family powwow with the rare co host and you, our esteemed audience. Tonight, we are addressing the topic religion. Has it been a help or hindrance in the freedmen civil rights reparation struggle? Would we be further along without religion? Joining me during this Team Rare production are Cynthia McDonald, Arthur Ward, Derek Williams, and Natalie Rozelle. Cynthia and Derek are active members of the Freedmen Descendants of Chicago, and on our panel, they provide space and inclusion for all of our agnostic atheist brothers and sisters. But wait, these two can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time because they also practice Buddhism. Because from their perspective, Buddhism is an understanding and not a doctrine of faith. Derek, Natalie, and I are all members of the DMV Freedmen, with Derek contributing his historical religious understanding, awareness, and interest in Buddhism, and media maven Natalie Rozelle providing promotions, strategic thought, and behind the scenes technical excellence. And me, I'm Kelly Matthews, the panel's resident Baptist Christian and co producer. Between the five of us, or some combination thereof, we come to you live at 7 p.m. every other Thursday to discuss religion and reparations, two dynamic topics that we have intersected into a dedicated show. Our charge and commitment to you, our audience, and the Freedmen Reparations movement is to push the boundaries of political correctness and challenge the societal institution of religion to walk the talk. Our ultimate aim is to revive the focus and determination of Dr. King in the 1960s Southern Christian Leadership Conference, but go further and expand that energy and support across all religion ideologies. Natalie, please cue Dr. King on the road to Jericho. I don't hear anything. Is it me?
Make sure you share your
Can you
audio.
hear?
Make sure you're sharing your audio when you actually are about to play a video.
All right, stand by, guys. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties here.
Well, while she's doing that, I want to say we're going to get started. While she's doing that, please share, tweet, and post to all of your social media platforms that Team Rare is back on the battlefield. Once again, addressing religion. Has it been a help or hindrance to the freedmen civil rights and reparations movement? You ready, Natalie?
I'm sorry. You're going to have to just move on, and I will definitely get back to you. Sorry.
Awesome. All right. Okay. Since we already know how crucial the Southern Christian Leadership Conference involvement was in the 50s and 60s, I'm going to pass the mic to Arthur first to get us started. As the opposing voice of religion having a central role in our civil rights and reparations fight. Following Arthur, Derek will chime in with his rebuttal. Cynthia will enlighten us on her position, and I will bring up the rear with my response. Arthur, the floor is yours.
All right. Now, let's start with complexity and let's end with a simple ending here. First of all, we had leaders who were not directly paid for by the power structure that had some degree of leadership qualities and a lot of education. Some of those people were people like Martin Luther King. Okay. And also, you have to look at the conditions. Even though racism still exists in our country and in our lives, it was a lot more hard and a lot more in your face at those times. So it was like we had to do something. Now, you say the community, well, most of our community was in the church. So naturally, you're going to go to the church to get your numbers. And at the same time, because of the fact that um, we have changed a lot of things in this country, we've also made a lot of transformations within our own mindsets and communities. And we have gotten to the point that religion no longer serves a purpose in our political, economic, and business lives. We spend more time with religion, give more resources from religion, but as a community, it does not impact us positively in the here and now. So I am definitely a no. Yes, we had the SCLC at the time, but there comes a time that you grow out of things and that you have to make changes uh, that fit the times and are and where we need to go. So it's a no.
All right. Appreciate that, Arthur. um, I kind of have a middle of the road perspective
Mhm,
with regards to present day, but I'm gonna start back towards the origin aspect. It was we. I don't believe that. I don't think. I don't see the evidence from my perspective that we would have made it this far without religion.
mhm,
And let me also be clear about that too, because the definition of religion is different with regards to how people are utilizing it. In this case, um, I don't just mean just as in the church or a set established buildings doctrine. I'm referring to the actual ideology that's connected with the belief system in God or a deity as a whole, right? So some people may not consider that, but I'm considering that as a compartment of religion. Um, I just don't see any type of way that people could have gone through what they went through and not had some type of deity or some type of outside source. And I think the core really comes down to I think Arthur's got some legitimate points, like with regards to the economics and the political aspect present day today. But I think that religion serves a greater purpose than that. And I think that's where the conflicts start to come in when you start to talk about cosmology, how the universe started, just origin questions that people have with regards to themselves. What is life? Is there afterlife, right? Those types of things. I think that religion has that's where it's capitalized and it's done both bad and good with regards to its relationship with us. There were aspects about religion with regards to the primitive Baptists, or what they call the slave church, that we originally come from, which obviously that was utilized to try to keep our mind state and our thought process compartmentalized and have the opposite effect of liberation. That being said, the way that we also utilize the religion itself and the fact that you have people like you could not have had movements like Denmark Vesey, to your point, where most of us were in the church because that was a line through the church, right? So the attempt for even um, revolts is coming in a place where people commune and they congregate,
mhm,
and they can also in some of these churches they can build kind of their own narrative.
mhm,
Due to Vesey, essentially, in South Carolina, they tried to push to have the slaves not actually read from the Old Testament, but the New Testament for the
mhm,
obvious reasons, right?
mhm.
Because he had the people seeing themselves as Israel, and that obviously the consequence for what was done to our ancestors was death by God, right? The
Okay.
God of their understanding. So
Mhm,
it serves a purpose. The other thing I would like to say too is that there's a hardwiring in the human makeup that really hasn't totally been dealt with regards to why we believe in religion or why we believe in an entity or something greater than ourselves. And that's not something religion itself isn't a part of us. It's actually a part of survival mechanisms, right? Coping mechanisms, cognitive responses that religion actually kind of taps into. So religion and its framework of how people believe in religion is actually linked to the very nature of being human. And it's connected to more primitive things. Let me give you a quick example and then I'll be quiet and let Cynthia hop in here, right? So the idea of a Happy Meal, right? Let's say a Big Mac value meal is really, you can use that as kind of a very simple way to understand how religion works or how it plays a part. The Happy Meal, the Coke, which is sugar, right? Which is, and it comes from processed sugar, is basically trying to, it basically utilizes the same very primitive nature that we have with regards to having the urge for an orange or an apple, which has natural sugar in it, right? Or having lean meats. But instead, we're able to kind of create these constructs. So you have Coke, right? You have Coca-Cola, which has sugar in it, and it's been created. It's not something that's natural. You have a Big Mac, which also isn't something that's natural. So basically, I'm saying that the aspects of religion in some ways are marketed similar to that. The lean meat aspect, or eating the sugar from things that come from the earth, right, are being emulated, right? Tapped in. The McDonald's and their marketing are tapping into these things that are very primitive into us. So of course, if you don't have a desire, if you had a choice between an orange or ice cream, which one do you have more of an urge for? Usually ice cream, because that impulse is amped up on steroids, right? So the impulse was there all along, essentially.
All right. So, well, let me ask you this, Derek.
Yeah.
In order for us to move forward as a people, should we be spending more time with religion? Because you're talking about it as that it has it builds some kind of advantage in terms of us living better as human beings. Well, I mean, we do spend a lot of time with religion, and it doesn't seem to have gotten us very far. So maybe the problem is that we have not spent enough time with church. We have not given our preachers enough resources. Okay, and we need to spend less time with the other things that more secular people are spending time with, like think tanks, technology, politics, and business. And we need to spend more time in church. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm basically saying is that without religion, you can't have Nat Turner, and without Nat Turner, you can't have some of the prelims to us actually being emancipated. There's a whole. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
and then
I do agree with you. I do agree with you, but
and then to go beyond that, what I'm saying is
that same God that we were so attached to, that we prayed to on a daily basis, left our drawers down for 400 years. Okay, and we not only had to deal with that 400 years of being under Christian slavery, okay, but we also had to pay a tremendous cost in activism. In other words, the time that Martin Luther King and all of the people that worked with him spent on just getting to constitutionality could have been used for education, building their business, creating think tanks, improving their community. There was a lot of time and resources with us just getting to be a constitutional human being in this country.
Well, by the time you get to that point, actually, foundational brick and mortar churches are actually a product of a certain class of Blacks actually being wealthy and establishing a certain level of success. But I'm kind of going way deeper than that. What I'm saying is that the aspect of belief is in some ways much more simpler for people to embrace, because there are very primitive aspects about us with regards to the way that we're made. So disbelief actually takes more effort. Okay. And you can research Andy Thompson, who wrote a book. He said he's an atheist, but he's also a psychiatrist, I believe he is, and he does work with regards to neuroscience.
Mhm.
And the book that he's most famous for is Why We Believe in God. So it's not about believing in the God for 400 years or whatever. It's the idea that human beings believe in a concept or a deity or anything outside of themselves, right? I don't want to take up too much time because Cynthia's sitting over there patiently. Let's let her get in here. Go ahead, Sid.
So I think that it's important when we're asking this question, and I think that I think it was prefaced better in the chat. Christianity, slaves would have just been brought by their own religions. Is this something that we needed in order for us to, move forward? Now, it's very difficult to actually parse that question, and this is the reason why I say that, because we know historically Christianity in of itself was the vehicle to harm us as a group of people, and it was also a vehicle that was used to organize us as a people. Now, if we look specifically at the AME Church and then the AME Zion Church, this is like the first predominantly Black denominations that was in the United States. Some of the largest denominations that actually are existent today. In actuality, these were like the first organizations where you actually had leaders of prominence and some education that was something that we as a people can kind of look up to kind of like tell us, okay, this is the way that you were here is not necessarily the way that you need to go now, right? And that's where we also see especially like when you have the difference between the slave annotated Bible versus the full canon that we know of the Bible, where abolitionists and people of the like Nat Turner was able to utilize some edicts in the actual Bible to justify freedom, right? So that's that portion. But I think it's really important to understand that religion in of itself is a man construct in order for us to try to have an understanding of our environment in the universe that we live in. But the more that we have garnered knowledge, have some type of epistemology about certain subject matters, where religion was the answer starts to fall off, and we have natural answers. Remember, there was a time where human beings thought that the sun was a deity until we actually started to study the sun and we realized that no, this is a natural phenomenon, that's a star, and this is the way that it functions, and this is even how it functions in our lives to help sustain us, right? It's not a god. So the more that we start to actually improve our knowledge bases when it comes to the world around us, the universe that we happen to live in, the less need for God or God belief comes into action. And it definitely can be something to be said that we have a term specifically in America, and I would say even globally, when it comes to what Christianity and how Christianity used to show up for Black people back in the day when it came to the civil rights movement versus what we see Christianity evolving into, or I would say devolving into right now, as a means and a ways in order for white supremacy in of itself. I'm speaking specifically of Christian nationalism to gain power. So, and so if you ask me, as a Black American that is a freedman, if this is a belief system or even a means for us to organize, do we need it now? No, we don't. And the reason being is because we are
Are you referring
alive.
to, Cynthia, I'm sorry, are you referring to Christianity by itself or all religion?
We don't need religion, period.
Okay.
There's no, I mean, in my point of view, we don't really need religion. Now, will I forcibly remove religion from a person's life? No. because no one forcibly removed non-belief from me. I came
Right.
to my conclusions by reason. Okay. As the more that I reread the Bible, I started looking into other religions. I kind of did my, my woo-woo trail up into where I am now. And I just realized that there's really no reason for us to believe in any type of thing that's considered metaphysical or supernatural,
Right.
because the majority of the time that the things that we have learned about the world have a natural answer, not a supernatural one. We still have yet to even come up with evidence or a working definition of what the hell supernatural is in the first place.
Right.
So even if we even if- I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to and be quiet for a bit, that so even if we like going back to like us as a political entity, we are in our irrespective places, moving in a way and doing movement work now in order for us to achieve equity for freedmen, right? Not just like equality, not just like, oh, you free now, give us free Amistad looking face. No, we want equity for what we have invested in this nation. We There is no need for us to call upon faith leaders any longer to call us to action to do anything. There is no reason for us to actually have to use like a church or a Christian organization or any of those things in order for us to organize.
Right.
Now, I will say that to completely negate those things would be foolhardy, especially since we are still overwhelmingly the most religious, especially in Christianity, group in the United States. But so there's going to be a way. There's going to be um, a way that we have to be able to work with one another in order to get what we can agree on done, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the commonplace in order for us to do that is not God belief. The commonplace to do that is that we all understand that we have been shafted and that we are owed. And the only way that we can get what we need to get done is to organize and to push through policy for those things to happen. But religion does not have to be the glue that makes that happen.
Okay, I'm going to jump in and try to share my screen. I'm going to let Dr. King precede me, and then I'll share my position. So let's see if this will work for us. Share screen. And I don't know what the audio will do in that vein, but we'll figure it out.
If this is Google, just make sure you select share audio so that it can actually play.
Okay. Can you see Dr. King?
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully you can hear him.
I cannot hear.
Can you click share clip first and then see what happens with that?
Click share clip. I think
Yeah,
that
see what.
sends me to a place where I put it to a text or something like that.
Okay.
Natalie, can you try from your end?
Yeah, hold on one more moment. Because these are good clips.
These are excellent clips, and a lot of what I'm going to say is said much better by the people that authored it. But while we're waiting on Natalie to queue up Dr. King, I'll just go into my position. From my perspective, I see the civil rights and reparations movement as basically just an ongoing fight with systemic white nationalist institutions. Period. And I've never seen a system or institution truly altered, dismantled, or changed from the outside in. Real lasting change usually comes from the inside out, with folks on the outside as more the support to the inside allies. So after 400 plus years, we know our fight is generational and we know it's institutional. And unfortunately, despite the fact that our freedmen ancestors literally built America from scratch with blood and bones and toil, we have been generationally locked out of most American institutions across the board, with religion being one of the exceptions. Did you guys know that this week, September the 11th through today, the 15th, the National Baptist Convention of America International hosted their 142nd annual conference at St. Stephen Church in Louisville, Kentucky. They likewise named HBCU Simmons College as their national headquarters. It is not a coincidence that both of these freedmen institutions are ran by Reverend Kevin Cosby, a freedman reparationist and a pastor. I say it's not a coincidence because the current president of the MBCA, Dr. Samuel Tolbert Jr., said, and this is when the clip would play, and I'll just preempt it
I might be
as
able to get.
Natalie's.
I can get it
All
for
right.
you. Is it MLK's or the other one?
Let's skip MLK. We'll come back to Dr. King. Let's play Dr. Tolbert.
On Medgar Evers?
No,
Which one?
Dr. Tolbert
Oh, I'm
is
sorry.
second
My
one.
bad.
Second one on.
National Baptist. Okay. Let's see what we got here.
Representing some 126 countries around the world, with 66 countries represented in Birmingham, Alabama in July 2022, gathered there in that city that is known for civil rights. And something happened in Birmingham, Reverend Timothy Woods. We passed a resolution supporting reparations with 90% of the vote of people who represented Baptists in 66 countries. They said that America ought to pay the debt. And I had a vote. I represented you. I had a vote on that resolution. I was so glad to cast the vote for reparations. The Baptist World Alliance, representing some 126 countries around the world, with 66 countries represented in Birmingham, Alabama in July 2022, gathered
So you could
there
stop it, Natalie.
in that city that is known for civil rights.
Natalie,
Okay.
it's on the loop, so you could stop it. So basically, I mean, it's low hanging fruit to talk about religion and expose the materialism that some churches have succumbed to. It's easy to drag grifters, homophobes, misogynists within the faith. But that's really the sad state of affairs of most institutions, not just religion. But how many of us knew that this past July, this summer, the Baptist World Alliance, representing 126 countries around the world, with 66 of those countries in attendance in Birmingham, Alabama, voting and passing with 90% of their delegates affirming that America is overdue on its debt to freedmen. This passing resolution announcement, I mean, it's a short snippet of Dr. Tolbert talking about reparations. But he continued to talk about our reparative justice claim for almost the entirety of his allotted time. I know the resolution just passed in July, and we have not seen the works of this resolution materialize yet. However, without a national institution like the MBCA with an international network, and how they gain that international network, having allies, how do we get that on this level just on our own? Whether we like it or not, our reparative justice claim is only resolved through political means and without the petitioning of a sizable, influential, and usually well-funded delegation, of which we freedmen have not been able to produce, and or a powerful, acceptable societal institution like religion, how do we convert the majority of Congress to vote in our favor and pay our grossly overdue debt? Um, this
Well,
movement on reparations in the Baptist Convention, I think, is huge. I think that the churches are getting the message that they are going to be antiquated if they don't get into the now of where their people are.
well, we
So
hope
whether
so.
we
We hope so. I mean, like I remember specifically when we were still with the other organization where they were actually trying to work on that. So I'm not surprised, and I'm glad that they did that. But I think that I think that this kind of goes back to what I was saying before. It will be foolhardy to think that specifically us as Black freedmen that we are going to be able to do movement work without the church, and the reason being is because we're overwhelmingly Christian as
Yeah.
a group. If you look at the Pew Research, when last time that they actually surveyed the percentage of how Black Americans divvy up when it comes to religion, like I know that like Black Americans was like at 79%. And when it comes to like people like Arthur and myself, we were like less than 1%.
Yeah.
I mean, just like to say that you're Black and an atheist is an aberration.
No,
It really
that's
is.
they got videos on that. Cynthia. I
Yeah,
didn't say
exactly. Like you are
that.
when, and I mean a lot, and I even saw it in the chat. Moriega kind of alluded to it that when they see the way that when it comes to church they see community, and a lot of times that is the thing that keeps a lot of Black. Actually, that's a lot of things that keeps humans in some type of religious affiliation
Right.
is that they're concerned about losing community, right?
Let
Because
me
like
add on to that, Cynthia. Let me add
yeah,
on to that right
I
there.
was just gonna say
Go
that
ahead. I'm
just
sorry.
like
Go ahead.
as no, I was just gonna say just as a natural phenomenon, human beings are social creatures, right?
Right.
We
You
as
know,
you said before, Derek, this is like our means of survival actually comes from being able to build communities and build groups in order for us to actually to help one another as far as like create well-being. And the only way that, unfortunately, I'm not going to say the only way, but the majority of the time that we as human beings have coalesced, especially when it came to organizing, is through belief systems like religion.
but
So
why is it that in the Black community, it seems like the most important things that uh, uh, are our systems in our community are preachers, and
Say
I
that
really
again.
it seems like the people that run the major organizations in our community are all preachers. If they're not an official head of a church, they like Mike Morial of the Urban League. He's also a preacher.
right.
Mm.
And I'm
It was
like,
Raphael Warnock. He's
yeah,
a
what he's a
pastor.
good
The
grief. Is that all we got?
Mark Robinson
Yeah.
from South
He's
Carolina. He's a lieutenant governor, and he's also a mega
Is
pastor,
that
and
all we got?
and very
I,
hateful in his speech as well.
Is
But
that
I
all
mean,
we got?
no, I don't necessarily think that's
that
all
is
we
not
got, but
all we.
historically,
Jesus
yeah.
Christ.
But what I'm just saying is like I don't believe that that's all we got, but historically, that's what we've been.
Yeah, well, you need to change the history
right.
because I get tired,
That
and I'm
exactly. Exactly.
I'm uneasy. You know what? It's good that this Christian organization has endorsed reparations. Bravo, God damn it!
But
But
see,
at the same time, I'm uneasy about all of these preachers, you know, possibly being in the Freedmen's Bureau, possibly being in organizations that deal with money. When I think about preachers getting their money, I get real nervous.
Right.
Especially
Those,
Well,
black.
that's
I'm gonna jump. I'm
You
gonna jump
know,
in. I'm gonna jump in
no.
right here. I'm gonna jump in right here. I'm gonna jump in right here because it's not all we have, but we're still in America. And it's a lot of what we are that's not been allowed to have the breath and depth of sunlight. We have a whole lot of entrepreneur spirit and an intellectual spirit, but all of our billionaires are entertainers. That is not a coincidence that that's really one of the being allowed to elevate in a religious institution or be an entertainer or athlete of sorts are the actual industries we have been allowed to flourish. It's not all we are, it's not all we have, but in the United States of America, we weren't allowed to have an intellectual
I understand that, but
flourishing
now this is
and
2022.
yeah, but now America is built, and when the wealth was being built and the money was being doled out, we were cut out of America. So we are still in the tracks, in the trades, in the institutions that we were allowed to be in from slavery, which is a lot of what our reparations
let me hop in for
like
this.
is about.
And just hold on for a second, and just to link up with what Kelly is saying is that we're still seeing a phenomenon where that is the case even to this day. Like when it comes to, we can point out story after story when you are seeing, you know, Black Americans that are trying to actually maneuver into other fields. They are a lot of times hit with barriers that do not come with their white counterparts, or even some of their or some other people of color who are able to get into that area. And I'm using that terminology very purposely because there's going to be, because even if a person is considered a person of color, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to always hit the same barriers as a person who comes from chattel slavery in the United States. So, you know, so since it's been historically rooted, and that tree is very much so old and has a lot of leaves, that this is oftentimes either you going into ministry or you going into entertainment in order for you to be a person of prominence. And even like when we're looking at these particular preachers,
are we locked into this cycle?
Well, hold on. Let me say something. Let me say something real quick, y'all.
Of preachers
let me say something real quick.
There's been community for the next 300 years.
Here's the reality. You can't just throw out religion.
No,
okay?
I know that.
Right. So you have to replace it with something. There has to be a developmental process. That's why I went the direction that I went when I was originally talking.
Derek,
right?
That's reason.
Right.
I mean,
but hold on, Cynthia. Hold on 1 second.
Well, let me just say this real quick, and then, you know, that's the only thing, like when you're saying that you're going to replace it with something, the only thing that you're going to be replacing it with is epistemology, knowledge, and reason. That's it. But the thing about it is as human beings, we don't even default to that.
But because we're already hardwired a certain way, that's why I started off that way, because this is already inside of being a human being. Think about it like this. Atheists are one out of 8 people in the world, right? Majority of the world is religious. Yeah. So this isn't even a Freedmen issue. This is an issue with regards to the way that human beings are hardwired, right? And so, but hold on.
Thank you, Derek.
Hold on.
Thank you, Derek.
So what I'm trying to explain, is that reason is only part of it. Okay, we really haven't gotten far enough with regards to neuroscience to really make these assumptions, y'all. That's the honest truth. That based on based on what scientists has already said, based on what we know about the brain. Right? The activity with regards to religion or believing into a deity or something else beyond yourself, right? Intention. There are 3 points. That's in the front portion of the brain. So what I'm trying to say is that Dr. Thompson, who's an atheist, has already explained, even for himself, it's hard as a human being to fully break away from belief. Now, he doesn't believe in God, but he finds that even when someone dies, that you're still talking to them as if they're here, because this is all hard. That's what I'm trying to say. That's the core.
Well,
That's the
what I
core.
was saying to you,
Hold on,
Derek. Wait,
Cynthia,
hold on
hold
one
on one
second.
second,
Wait one
because I
second.
didn't finish what I was saying, and I allowed
Okay,
y'all
go
to
ahead.
talk. That's the core. That's the core of where the belief for religion comes from. So what I'm saying is if you remove the religion, cool. Reason isn't just enough, because over millions of years, nature has caused our brains to react this way for survival. It's for survival. So what I'm saying is that if we're talking about just tossing out religion, even with regards to reparations, let's wait another 100 or 200 years for people to catch up to that knowledge.
Okay, well, okay.
It's not something we can do right now.
Pin that, because I have. Wait a minute. I had questions for you. That's why I was trying to stop you for a moment.
Sure.
Well, first off, I wanted to ask you specifically, what are you saying is the assumption? Are you saying that reason is an assumption, or religion is an assumption? What specifically are you talking about?
Assumption is actually a part of the human makeup. Okay. So we assume things all the time before they happen. So we try to predict.
Sure.
Right. That's actually a part of the way that the brain functions, because it is a mechanism of survival that goes back hundreds of thousands of years.
Sure.
Right. So what I'm trying to say is that religion, people have taken religion. There's these receptors in our brain, and they basically instilled that into the receptors because the receptors already work a particular way based on our survival.
All right.
So to strip religion out of there, I believe in deconstruction. You already know that. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I believe in reason. But what I'm trying to say is, if we're being realistic about this, we're talking about something that's a process that's going to take decades or maybe even centuries for that really to happen.
I don't disagree with you.
So,
I don't disagree with you.
So then let me sum it up and say this. I'm gonna shut up.
Yeah. Okay.
So my take on it is, it was necessary for religion with regards to the development of our people, right? We probably couldn't survive without it, whether it's true or not, right? In present day times, it's a much more complex situation for the reasons that Arthur particularly, but even you, Cynthia, and even you, Kelly, have pointed out. That being said, you're not going to be able to totally remove religion from people through rational thought. Or they're not going to be able to totally remove it from themselves, is what I'm trying to say. So it makes more sense to utilize their belief behind behavior.
Yeah, I mean, like, but human beings don't even default to rationality. We don't default to reason. We don't default. We don't default to critical thinking. That is not our natural state. So I don't disagree with you at all. That's why I was saying previously.
Not our natural state.
No, exactly. That's why I was saying that. That's why I said that religion in of itself is a construct. It's a human construct in order for us to try to find a way for us to understand our environment and be able to maneuver through it. That's what it was. However, when we started to gain more knowledge about our environment, about the universe and things of that nature through the scientific method, some of the things that we actually attributed to a deity happened to fall off. I gave the example as the sun, right? So this is something that I was saying that it will have to be a phenomenon that people do in as they gain knowledge and as they happen to go forward in life. That's why I was saying that I don't advocate the mass stripping or coercion of people out of belief. I don't agree with that, because in actuality, it will be the same. It will be the same thing on a different coin, on the flip side of a coin, that other churches did, like the Catholic Church did to, let's just say during the Spanish Inquisition, when they were trying to make Jews say that they denounced Judaism and they were going to be Christian. Okay, I don't want that to happen. That's overarchingly oppressive. And even like anytime that you are using belief or non-belief in order to force somebody to do something that you want, and you're trying to coerce them, all you're going to do is just create more oppressive states. That's not what I want. What I'm saying is that, but if we're going to keep it 100, as far as like being able to build, being able to move forward and things of that nature, especially as we get more knowledge about us and what we're doing. If you're going to ask me, do you need religion to do that? My answer would be no. No, you don't. You don't need religion to do that. I'm just saying that it's not something that you're going to toss out with the baby in the bathwater,
Right.
because we still have people that are extremely religious.
Yes,
The
and also,
majority of
Derek, let me
people,
say this.
majority of people are,
Let
and
me
the
say this.
reason is because there's already something that's going on with inside of their
Yeah,
brain
let me
that's
say this.
attached to being human at the
Yeah,
end of the day.
let me say
And it
this.
is a
Now,
construct. I'm not
what
saying
I
it's not a
say
construct.
here, what I
I'm
say
gonna jump
here
in after you, Arthur.
is okay. What I say here is within the context of our discussion. I
Right.
deal with preachers all the time, and they know that I'm an atheist. But when it
Right.
comes to dealing with this movement, they really appreciate what I'm doing because they understand that I'm about the race. I'm the same thing. I mean, we need to have our own word that's the equivalent of La Raza. Yeah, we need to have a La Raza damn. So yeah, I'm about the race. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And so when they
Right.
feel that about me, and they deal with me and I deal with them, and it's several preachers that I'm real cool with, like Pastor Williams. We go out for cigars and stuff, but as far as like us as a people, the transformations that we have to do in order to move ourselves forward, the discussions that we must have, religion has to be on the table because it's too big a part of our lives for us not to discuss the time and resources that we put into this. Is it really helping us as a people to move forward? And again, I say no, but I don't have those kind of forceful discussions with
Yeah.
pastors, especially people that I'm trying to get into the reparations movement.
And we also got to keep it a buck too, people.
Yeah.
We're also in America where churches, faith-based organizations, they have the upper hand. Like the laws, tax laws, and even when it comes to oversight, favor those organizations other than just like your regular old 501c3.
Right.
Where there is, I personally am an advocate. If we're going to talk about really the establishment clause and separation of religion and government, then the same protections that churches would have just because they're faith-based and 501c3 should be for any organization or not at all.
Mhm.
So like and that's and a lot of times I even have like some friends of mine who were saying that we want to do more activism work, but we were just thinking about setting it up as a church of non-belief because we want the protections that churches get. So
Yeah.
it's with that, if you are in an environment like the United States where it's going to be preferable for you to be in a especially like in a church, a Christian church that's going to favor you more when it comes to like what type of money you bring in, how you are operating, etc. That's why you're going to see more Dr. Talberts, Dr. Cosby's, and etc, because the environment favors them more than just like if I was just like me doing my work and I do a 501c3, but I'm not doing it as a faith-based organization. I'm going to have way more scrutiny on me than a church would be. So that because
Right.
that's we got to keep that real too, and that's why, and that's the problem that bugs me specifically, that there's going to be like certain protections that's going to be afforded to an organization that's religious based, whether if they are going to be for their people or not. Because we can all cite examples of some churches, a lot of churches that teach hate, that have bad rhetoric, and also are corrupt. There's a lot of them. So but the thing about it is that even if you look at the IRS and has seen like those particular churches, when it comes to oversight and those who are actually had their stuff taken away because of corruption, that happens very little, extremely little.
Yeah.
So
Ask Creflo Dollar.
And that being the case, I mean, at the end of the day, this is the United States. And even if Freedmen wasn't as submerged into Christianity as we are, the United States, usually religious responses are sometimes the canary in the coal mine to political responses. I want to
Yeah.
share two clips that I found of Robert Jones, the author of the book White Too Long.
I love that
talking
book.
about yes. So you're going to love these two clips talking about how religious secession preceded the political secession of the Civil War. Natalie, can you cue the third video of Robert Jones, and right after that, cue the fourth? But basically, this video, oh, it's coming up.
Medgar Evers, Jackson.
Nope, that's the fourth one. Can you do the one before that one? Because that was the one kind of more important. I guess you could do Medgar Evers, but the point is, the one she's queuing up is there was a split with the religion, the Christianity from the North and the South, and because the North was saying that missionaries could not be seated if they were former enslavers, and the South said, oh, they can. So there was a break there, and here it is.
I landed at Southwestern Seminary that I understood and was taught the real beginnings of what the words what the word Southern and Southern Baptist meant, right? And it was in 1845, Baptists in the South split with Baptists in the North over the issue of whether someone who enslaved other people could be appointed as a missionary. Baptists in the South decided that was fine. Baptists in the North said they wouldn't appoint them. And so this entire enterprise got off the ground, right, in 1845. And the thing I'd also not realize is that the political secession that ripped the country apart in the Civil War had its dress rehearsal in Baptist and Methodist churches, right? There was a religious secessionist movement based on the same things inside Methodist and Baptist churches, who Methodists also split 1845, that really paved the way for the political secession movement over the same issue.
Okay, pause that one. So while Natalie is queuing up the next Robert Jones, I'll reiterate that it was the pressure within the religious institutions that kind of provided the kindling for the Civil War. And finally, this final tip is for Robert Jones, detailing the tipping point of what really killed Medgar Evers.
My bad. Got the other one.
Well, while she's
Hold on.
While she's queuing that, I want to say these. Oh yeah, I want to say this. These two videos, once she queues up the second, illustrates that America, especially when it comes to freedmen, religious and politics acts, be they good, bad, or indifferent, they run on the parallel track. And they basically flow together, whether we're involved in it or not.
Yeah.
So let me hear about Medgar.
Medgar Evers, Jackson, Mississippi-based civil rights organizer. What's not written a lot about him is that the thing he was doing the day before he was killed was trying to integrate white churches in Mississippi, First Baptist Church and Galloway Memorial Methodist Church in downtown Mississippi, where the governor and the mayor respectively went to church, right? And that was the thing he was killed for. And by the way, who was he killed by? He was killed by an Episcopalian, a white man who was from the Delta, in good standing in an Episcopalian church, who had also played that role of standing out on the steps of his church to prevent any black people from coming to church. That's the man who pulled the trigger.
Mm-hmm. I first want to encourage anybody and everybody to please read White Too Long. Robert P. Jones is a theist. He was born and raised in the Southern Baptist Church. And he has really good information specifically inside his book. But I really did want to go to that first clip about the split and especially like how he was talking about how in politics the dress rehearsal happened within the Southern Baptist, between the Northern and the Southern Baptist Convention. And one of the things, like, I don't know if he got to it in that particular talk, but he talks about this specifically in his book, is that when you had like pastors like Basil Manley Sr., and other prominent pastors at that particular time between the 1840s and the 1850s, they weren't just preachers. They weren't just slave owners. They were elected officials. they were elected officials. They were people who were in legislatures who were helping to actually create laws. Okay, so in that particular time period, like when we're looking specifically at the Southern Baptist Convention in of itself, which is the second largest denomination in the United States right now, it's the largest Protestant denomination in the United
Right.
States. A lot of times they had a lot of people specifically in that in that denomination that was also serving in Congress. They were senators, they were Congress people, they were cabinet members, you know. So like the and the thing about it is, and which really bothers me to my core, is that we have always in the United States practiced, even though that we said that we were not going to set up a actual organized religion to govern the state. We wanted that separate. And the reason being is because the founding fathers knew how that went when they were in England, and how the church and the state and the church were one. You know, essentially when Queen Elizabeth died, the Pope of the Church of England died. That's really what happened. And because there was never a separation. But now that we have this particular, but the thing about it is that even though that we have said this in our body politic when it came to the Constitution, that is not something that was practiced on the larger scale when we're talking about the United States.
Yeah. It almost couldn't be because of the power.
I mean, but this, even if we're talking about the power, but this is something that we even have seen come over from like European powers, like, you know, oftentimes like clergymen, monarchs, and leaders were always lockstep.
Yeah.
Right. You know, the church has always been in some shit. The organized church has always been an organization that was also very political. There was never a separation. Like the only
if you think about it, Cynthia, religion is political.
It is. It is. I mean, even if you look at like how like churches themselves are ran. That's one of the reasons why I had to get the hell out.
Yeah.
There was
you know what?
some type of politics that was going on in that area.
And the other thing is, I don't believe that most Black pastors want us to have any kind of empowerment through reparations, because they make their money on our suffering. And the richer people are, the less time they spend in churches.
I think
I'm going to jump
agree
in.
with that.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Derek, and
I'm sorry,
I'm gonna close
Fib.
out.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I agree with that with regards to it may be all, but definitely the mega joints. I feel you on that. Last thing I want to say, Kelly, this one is for Arthur's point. In the last 3 decades, the number of Black churches has nearly tripled, right? Each year they take in over $400 million a year. And that source would be the Black Church documentary.
Okay, I'm going to jump in and say this, and then I'm going to close out. Some people have different adverse interactions with pastors. I have very positive relationship with pastors. My pastor in my church feed the homeless. They clothe the naked. They help people with their rent. They help people with kids and tutoring, getting tuition, going to college, everything. Reverend Gilbert, that was a guest of ours. He is in charge of the Center for Racial Equity and Justice, and they are the fiscal sponsors of the DMV Freedmen. Every interaction I have had with pastors has been a progressive one and about our people. While preparing for this show, I skimmed a 2018 essay entitled, "What Role Did Christian Teachings Play in the American Civil Rights Movement?" I thought this was interesting to share with you guys as I'm closing out, because it was written by someone named Julius Gunta and published by a International Relations Group. So this is an international perspective and written in 2018 that I want to share with you this following quote from that essay. During the civil rights movement, the black churches, progressives, and the white churches, evangelicals, understanding of Christian doctrine was undergirded by their political postures. As such, Christian doctrine in the white church was used to concretize their social political hegemony. And in a book written about John Calhoun describes the civil rights era white church as the principal institution of oppression and racism in the country. The white church was this. And in many ways, the evolution of the black church was in direct response to the white church's domination. So a lot of what we see of our churches being the lead on this was actually them standing in the gap for us and picking up this oppression and being the target of this oppression that the white church was spewing all on its own. So whether we were in this religious realm or not, we were going to be in this space. And that's my whole position here. It's about institutions. We're not going to change that one institution yelling from the outside. We have to be on the inside. We have to be organized. And as rare regulars know, our time goes quickly.
Can I
And
just
with
add
that,
one thing? Can I just add one
sure,
thing?
sure.
Though?
Add one thing.
Thank you. That, I don't disagree with that. I even wrote a speech about that, specifically concerning about how Black churches were able to utilize like liberation in theory and things of that nature in order for them to fight against oppression from white religious organizations. But one of the things that is happening right now is that there is a rise, I want to say like almost like a good 18 to 19% of Black Americans now that are not religious at all. And it is steadily climbing. This is a trend that's actually happening in of itself. So the more that we actually go on, as Derek actually alluded to, as I point up to you, sir, that once that oftentimes that when it comes to any person that is disenchanted, especially when it comes to religious organizations, they have a tendency to sever themselves and end up starting their own. Because even like with a lot of the things that I admire your church for doing a lot of the different things that they say that they do for people. But I work for a secular organization and we do the exact same thing and we do it without God. So that's all my take is about it. I mean, the more that we go on, probably the less religious we're going to be, and a lot of these things are just going to fall off on their own. We'll see.
We'll see. But what my churches is doing is bridging the gap of what secular is not doing. So we're at the end of the show, and as our rare regulars know, I love that oxymoron, rare regulars. Uh, anyway, our beloved audience that's plugged in, you know what time it is. At the end of our show, we always leave you with a scripture, a quote, a word, a tie that binds and sustains us to meet again. And I think Natalie dropped my clip there. Natalie, what happened to Reverend Tolbert? He just when I was about to, oh, here he comes.
That I thought you were gonna do something else. Sorry.
Nope, I'm closing out. Play Reverend Tolbert.
I had one of my white brothers say to me one day, Reverend Glenn, don't blame me for what my grandparents did. I don't blame you for what they did. But you keeping the money that they passed down to you that my grandparents worked for nothing so they could have it. So if you don't want me to blame you for what they did, give me my money. We need to start talking about reparations like they've been talking about it here at St. Stephen.
Okay, you can pause. You can pause. So basically, he closed out saying, "We coming to get our check." That's our hour of power. We look forward to seeing you again Thursday, September the 29th at 7 p.m. Please connect with us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Rare is a By the People media production, and we are everywhere you are. Please hit us up with your question, comments, and topics you would like us to address, and we will get it into our production schedule. And with that, we will depart by saying peace and love to all. Amen, ashe, assalamu alaikum, and good night.